Hi, this is Jonathan Haverkamp again. Thank you for joining me. The question I received today was, which psychotherapy is most effective? Again, this is not medical advice or any psychological advice, and it's copyright Christian Jonathan Haverkamp. That sounds like a very big question. Which psychotherapy is the most effective one? Um, well, there are probably lots of schools of psychotherapy which will tell you that theirs is the most effective one, and there's lots of research out there which shows that whatever psychotherapy was being researched is more effective than the other ones. There's also more common sense research which shows that, well, actually, a lot of them tend to be pretty effective, or some people say maybe none of them are effective. Now, from working day to day in psychotherapy and counseling, I can tell you that psychotherapy is effective, and most good research out there says it's effective. And in most treatment guidelines for a lot of conditions, from anxiety to depression, and many other ones as well, they all say that psychotherapy or counseling should be a part of a treatment plan, any treatment plan. And in some conditions like schizophrenia, other forms of psychosis, or ADHD, it can be helpful to add on. So even if someone takes medication, psychotherapy can still be really important, and it can help to reduce the medication, and in the long run it might even help to at some point discontinue with the medication. Of course, only on the advice of a medical professional, and very often that should be done gradually. So, psychotherapy, which is the best one? Well, there's research out there which shows that maybe the school of psychotherapy doesn't even matter that much. But what matters is the relationship between the therapist and the client or patient, and the personality of the therapist, and factors that are actually not so much related to the psychotherapy school, but more to the communication, to the engagement between the therapist and the patient. So you might wonder, okay, that's not really an answer, is it? Which is the most effective one? Now, there's also some evidence that maybe some forms of psychotherapy might be better for one condition than another. For example, some people may say that CBT is superior for OCD and anxiety and depression, while others doubt that. Now you will find a lot of research on CBT, but you will also find quite a lot of research on psychodynamic psychotherapy, IPT, interpersonal therapy, and other schools of therapy, including Gestalt and others. Probably one of the reasons why CBT comes out so on top as far as publications go is because it's highly manualized, meaning it fits quite well into the model, the medical model, which we have, meaning it's easy to say, okay, this is the problem, these are the tools, and now the client, we tell the client what the tools are, and then the client can apply them. So, for example, cognitive behavioral techniques, like you might have heard of exposure, and other ones. Now, the problem is that when it comes to the emotions and to insight, for example, why I might have been feeling anxious. CBT quite often might not be that helpful. So CBT is a set of tools, and people working with CBT might say it's more than just a set of tools, but principally it's a set of tools. So for example, on the cognitive side, you might learn certain techniques, how to deal with intrusive thoughts or negative thoughts. But important, of course, is to see also, at least that's what a lot of people say, is also insight into why do I have that? Because if I find out why I may have that and what's contributing to it, I might actually do something that makes the symptoms go away because the causes go away. So, for example, if someone is in the wrong job, meaning the job doesn't align with my values or needs or interests or just being respected as a human being, I get more and more anxious, then of course a change in job could be helpful, or changing something on the job. So you see, which is of course insight-oriented would be the most psychodynamic approach, essentially trying to find out what is going on. But even there, what is really working? What is really helping? And what seems to be working in a lot of cases is really the connection between the therapist and the patient. Understanding, communicating in ways that are helpful, seeing it as a journey which two people take together to not only discover, but to discover what's going on, but also to develop together solutions and approaches, new perspectives. And that's a journey between two people, or two people are taking. So you see, there is something in psychotherapy which is probably helpful, but none of the major school really addresses, and that is the communication the client has with others, and of course the communication that takes place on the inside. And this is where therapy can be helpful, because it helps to untangle those communication patterns. It helps to, in the session with the therapist, to experiment with communication patterns that may be new. As it also helps to develop new perspectives. And it also entails creating greater awareness for the communication patterns one uses. And that in turn has a huge impact on how a client interacts with the world, and that really changes the world, both on the outside and on the inside. The inside and the outside are really reflective of each other. So how we communicate on the inside and how we communicate on the outside is highly related. So what is the most effective psychotherapy might really come down to what actually makes psychotherapy effective and powerful. And that is really the connectedness between therapist and client, the working relationship, that the therapist is able to understand and pick up where the client is, and of course the client also wanting to get help so that they both work together. It's looking at communication between the two. It's looking at, because that of course reflects also how the client communicates with the world. And the communication between the therapist and the client is of fundamental importance. And in those communication patterns is really where therapy happens. And what happens, as we already discussed, what happens on the outside, so between the client and the therapist, is also reflective of what happens inside of each, like the client and the therapist. So working with the communication between the two also then translates into a different communication on the inside, and that is what makes therapy very, very effective. It's in those communication patterns we find the key to real change, a change that goes beyond what any support that doesn't focus on communication can accomplish. And so I hope I've answered that question by saying, well, many types of therapy can be effective. The most effective therapy is the one with the most effective therapist. Thank you for watching again. Please send me your questions, and I'm happy to answer them as well as I can. And in the meantime, I hope you have a nice week, and see you then.